As the founders of Surefoot, Bob and Russ Shea are obsessed with creating the perfect ski boot for you because they know that a properly fitted custom ski boot will make you a better skier, whatever level you're at. Surefoot, better fitting, better skiing.
Welcome back, Freeride fans, to the Freeride Guide podcast. This is your Challenger Edition recap. I'd say Region 2, specifically Region 2 Challenger Series recap. I was there. I did all of the broadcast live streams. I was doing my best Derek Foose impersonation. I was trying to tap into a lot of the things that you do. I was really trying to set it up. And honestly, I want to make Derek proud of me.
I thought you guys sounded great.
I can't blow it. So obviously Mark Warner here. We got Mr. Derek Foose. I think you're in Whistler today. I'm in Calgary today. One day we'll be in the same place again. Maybe at the end of the season, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I'm at home for a brief stint. Got home from Verbier. I have just about enough time to do laundry, repack, and then head to where you just were at Kicking Horse for the Junior Freeride Championships of North and South America. So, yeah, just getting my life together and back on the road tomorrow.
Right on. Well, we'll get into all of this in just a moment. But for those of you watching, the Freeride Guide is available on every podcast app, and you can watch us on YouTube. It's located on the Low Pressure Podcast YouTube channel. And if you enjoy the show, if you had a good time, having conversations with us all season, we'd really appreciate it if you'd click that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, give us a follow. Any of those really help. We'd appreciate it to the max. You can also get us on Instagram at freeride_guide. And if you want to be a part of the show, send us an email. Backslap at freerideguidepodcast.com. That's the backslap inbox. So if we backslapped on a take or you want to give us a slap on the back, that's where you send it, and we just might read it on the show. Thanks to our sponsor, Surefoot Custom Ski Boots. Fitting you with Surefoot Custom Heated Liners and Surefoot Custom Orthotics. Ski boots are a long-term investment in your skiing experience, and Surefoot is here to educate your decision. Don't just take our word for it. Come and experience what you've been missing at one of the 29 Surefoot locations across the US, Canada, and Europe. And finally, Head Skis and Tyrolia Bindings. The Head Core Collection is built to ski anything and are a Freeride World Tour partner and a sponsor of the Freeride Guide, as well as many FWT and IFSA Qualifier athletes. I broke out a pair of skis that I hadn't yet. I mounted some Almonte bindings on a pair of 106s. And Kicking Horse had nice snow up top, and they've got like the 4th highest vertical in the world. So they have these big, long, steep groomers. Oh man, a ski with a slightly smaller underfoot than I'm used to with sharp edges. I haven't had that much fun going that fast in a long time. So yeah, thank you, Head Skis and Tyrolia Bindings. So thanks to our sponsors. So as you can see, I've got some new swag, Derek. So I currently have the Western Canada Freeride hat on, and you have the Whistler Freeride Club hat on. I don't know how many times I made the mistake and got them mixed up this past weekend, but I'm getting there. And shout out to the IFSA for a great new hoodie. So Challenger Region 2. They got it done in about a week, all 3 events. Normally in past, there'll be an event in a couple different spots in the US and one in Canada, and there's a lot of driving in between. And I talked to quite a few of the riders, and they were very pleased that it was all kind of within a short time span and kind of a closer geographically as well. So you can get from one to the next and reset right away without those big long drives.
Yeah, I think financially for these young riders, it's a good way to go. And IFSA definitely put some time into the schedule and a lot of thought into it. And obviously with with Kirkwood to Whitewater to Kicking Horse would have been a bit more of a grind. But with the way things worked out down in Tahoe with the just unbelievable heat wave, it was pretty much all in the same neighborhood all over, just over the course of a week. So yeah, worked out for the riders, worked out for the event production because they had to move around. Everybody had to move around less than expected. So I can imagine that's going to be put on the drawing board as a potential solution / option for the future, to just do the Challenger Series in an area, knock it out 1, 2, 3, and then rotate that area around over the course of seasons. The one downside to that potentially is, picture this year if the whole Challenger Series was Kirkwood, Palisades, Sugar Bowl, then the entire thing would have been sewered. So if you have a region that gets hosed for snow, same thing if it had been in Colorado this year, it would have been near impossible. So I think the solution is just always have it in Western Canada.
Yeah, nice.
Where it snows.
How far in advance are these venues decided? Because you could say, like, you could kind of keep an eye on what the snow is doing or what conditions are doing throughout the season, and if there's like a cutoff, say like end of January or something, and say, hey, talk to the 2 resorts, and then just have kind of a hold, and like you said, maybe create 2 different locations where you can do a circuit, and then just say, hey, we've got to go where the snow is, and just say, hey, we want to create a long-term partnership with you folks. This isn't your year. Next year, we're going to try and figure it out because we had to go here because of snow.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule ideally is determined in the fall. The negotiations and the event calendars of the resorts are the primary factor in the negotiation, right? When do you have space in your calendar to do this? So that's the tough thing about what you're suggesting, is if you do it like kind of last minute, like the surfing big wave tour, are the resorts able to accommodate, or do they have like a kids ski race or a slush cup or whatever else their event staff might be engaged in? And then the other piece is the accommodation. Like you do ideally want to be able to book accommodation with as much notice as you can. Now, for the bulk of the athletes who are only finding out that they qualified at the end of at the end of February anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there. So yeah, I think it's not impossible to do it that way, but there's just a few little hurdles that would have to be managed.
Another big one, as I thought about while you were explaining that, is through the marketing, resort marketing. They want to be able to say, hey, we've got this thing coming on, like, come and check it out. Like, so that's a draw as well. So so that's an interesting kind of topic to think about. But for this Challenger region, let's get to some of the events. So you mentioned Kirkwood. That was the original first stop. Unfortunately, had to be canceled. Shout out Tahoe Freeride, huge, like really, really influential freeride club out of the Tahoe region. They're, I'd say, one of the bigger ones. They have tons of riders coming out. They're really, really organized. I had a really great time when I was down there.
Yeah, and just for a point of clarity, Tahoe Freeride is not a single club. It's the same as Western Canada Freeride. That is the regional organization,
the amalgamation of all of them
in California. Yeah, that's exactly the same. So you've got Jeff Holden running Western Canada Freeride. Tahoe Freeride is Jason Dobbs and a whole host of other people. But that is the regional series organization in that area.
So
rather than a single freeride club.
So the WCF is part of the FWC is part of the WCF.
You're close. WFC is part of the WCF.
Yeah, see what I'm talking about? I'm looking at it. All right, so we were supposed to start in Kirkwood on the legendary Cirque venue. So instead, that was restaged in Kicking Horse, which we'll get to in just a second. So we started off the week in Whitewater, under Waimea Peak. They had the same fate as Kirkwood last year. So just a little bit different. It was just too much weather. They had a perfect window, and then the weather came that they weren't able to get the comp off in. Weather came in, they had to cancel it. So they're really, really excited to be able to put a competition down here. The competition face was massive. It was huge. There was a top section where you could do quite a few features, and then a huge traverse where I think a lot of the riders were able to just kind of regain their thoughts, catch their breath, reply to a couple emails, whatever they think they needed to do. And then another lower section, which had a huge variety of options. A face like that, I really like when you can not, basically all the riders aren't funneled into one spot, or all the riders don't see, one series of features that stands out as the best option and everybody hits it. It's kind of cool because then it's easier to see who stands above the rest, but I like a little bit of variety personally.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that venue was sick, and it's enormous. And while the snow conditions weren't optimal, just because it did warm up a little bit before the comp, I think it really showed like proof of concept for that as a challenger venue. And the whole time I was watching that comp, I was like, oh, imagine this venue in perfect powder. It would be a showstopper. So it's sick, and I hope it holds a place in the challenger rotation, because it's definitely got it's got everything. And like you said, the variety of lines that got skied between the selection at the top and the selection at the bottom, there were so many ways you could kind of interpret it. And to see the way the riders did that, to see what kind of caught their eye and then how they did it, I thought was so cool. Like really, really cool face. And Whitewater's so into it.
Yeah, and you know what? Shout out to Mike Rubenstein and Kyle and the rest of the crew there at Whitewater. They were so accommodating, and they were so happy to have us there. Whitewater is such a cool little spot, and the town of Nelson is rad too. So really, really enjoyed the week there. And you're mentioning the face there. It was also interesting too because the sun was kind of popping in and out, and this was kind of a thing throughout the week that hasn't really stood out to me in many comps before, but it happened 2 or 3 times in several comps where the sun would come out and the light would be different on a feature, and the riders would start hitting that feature different, and then the sun would go away, and then riders would go back to how they were riding it before the sun came out and then disappeared. Specifically in this event, there was one little chute that was quite tight that the riders were coming through, and there was a bit of a snow wall on the edge of this chute, and there's a lot of like really kind of pendulum slow movement to get through it because it wasn't like a clear run out. At one point, one of the riders had their back against the snow wall. I think Kestrel in that first event straight lined out the bottom, and that was kind of one of the standouts. And then partway through the event, the sun shone directly on that little side snow wall. And the next 3 riders that came down through that chute went up and over it and went out the other side. They didn't come down through the chute and around. They went up and over and then found another exit. And then as soon as the sun went away, the next riders went back through and got stuck through that funky little chute, like the straight line exit. So it was really interesting seeing how the sun and the light really changed how the riders were able to access and see, oh, that doesn't work, but this is the better way. So it was really neat.
Yeah, it's almost like when you can see better, you can ride better.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So the first event was on Waimea Peak in Whitewater. Event number 2 was the Kirkwood restage on T1 North in Kicking Horse. And this is a much more condensed face. You've seen a lot of the junior freeride championships and events there as well. What's your thought on T1 North?
Yeah, I mean, they've used it for 4-stars in the past. They used it once for Freeride World Tour restaging Hakuba
Right.
when that one couldn't run.
It's the official restage comp.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you go if you can't get your own event off. You can always count on Truth and Dare. I don't know. I like it. It's short. It's really short, but it's very steep, and it's pretty demanding. And you saw that in that event where people who made little mistakes up high got like aggressively punished for them, because it is so steep. There's nowhere to get rid of your speed up there. And there were a few examples of that in the event, but I think it's a very solid plan B. It's not what I wouldn't put it on the challenger calendar as a main event stop, but I think luckily Kicking Horse has such a huge, variety of venue options. But to me, that one it's serviceable, it's functional, and it gets the job done. It's a little short and a little lacking in features. And exactly what you said about Waimea, the polar opposite, where almost everybody's skiing a variation of the same line. And there's many features that nearly everyone hit. And if you didn't, you were not in play because the line score wouldn't stand up. So
yeah, there's a little yeah, I hear you. There's a little feature at the bottom that we were calling the town bike.
I thought that was awesome that you brought that in. That was so funny.
The town bike, and then there's one side, and then the other side was a little smaller, so we started calling it the lime scooter. But yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Rachel Shannon, my co-host on the broadcast. It took us. I have a lot more appreciation. I always did appreciation for what you do on that show, because you got to think so fast. But also, I realized the communication you have to have with your co-host. If you're about to say something, or if you forget something, or if you have to sneeze or do anything kind of something like that, you just have to make these the little communications with them. Do you set up I know you've been with Hadley a few times, but every once in a while you get a co-host you haven't worked with, and you just give them little heads up hey, I may need to do one of these, or I may need to give you a little hand signal, and this is what it means?
Yeah, we lay out a series of hand signals, if I have something to say or if you need to stop talking. Obviously, we've got comms with the production team in our ear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you noticed this, but how difficult it is to continue speaking when someone's speaking into your ear, because your instinct is just to stop talking and listen.
Yeah.
So to be able to hold a flow while somebody's giving you direction or a countdown or information that you need or whatever, and that's the beauty of having two people. Is the director or the producer can talk to the other one, and then they can. But yeah, some basic hand signals are critical to be able to communicate without just turning and being hey, you need to stop talking now, or what you're saying is incorrect, or I have something really cool to say, whatever. And the more you work with somebody, the more fluid and smooth that gets, for sure, at least in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were lucky enough to be able to do 3 in 5 days, 6 days. So the first one was a little rough, but I think people said it sounded good, but we know behind the scenes, we listened to a few parts of it again, and we're oh yeah, that's so we got better and better as it went on. And yeah, it was really neat to have a whole new appreciation for that. But tons of fun, so much fun. So okay, moving on. So yeah, shout out Rachel. So we did the Kirkwood restage. We saw some pretty fun highlights in there as well. Actually, I want to talk about a couple. We'll finish these 2, and then we're going to go right into. So for those of you listening, we're going to really dive into event number 3, because that's the one that decides who moves on. It's the most recent memory. But in the kicking of the whitewater event, couple things I wanted to kind of point out. Kai. We talked about Kai Morgan winning, and then didn't think he did very good, so he left, and then ended up on the top spot of the podium, and he wasn't there. I teased him a little bit, but he had a very great event and is moving on to the Freeride World Tour. On that first event, Katie Anderson really came through and put her stamp on it, say, hey, I want to get back. We talked about Katie on the former episode, and she really, really wants to get back. She ended up in 2nd overall, but we got to chat about that. That first one was kind of people getting their bearings, kind of figuring a few things out. Kane Gascoigne had a really nice run, which set him up for some success further on. Nate Pruzan, Kai Morgan, Reed Kelly had good runs. Hannah Baldwin for Snowboard Women Ski Women kind of really introduced herself to the world this week.
Yeah, and I guess you guys didn't know, but she's the 2025 Freeride Junior World Champ. So
I did not know that.
Not a huge surprise within the community to see Hannah have success there, and coached by Jacqueline Pollard. So she's got a solid crew in her corner, and she's got a pedigree of winning, in the spotlight.
Information we probably should have known before we got into that. Now I know. So if you're listening to this, Hannah, come on, man, come and have a chat. We had a little chat with. So it's different from what you're doing, is all the riders, who they all are. So we had 80 riders over the course of the 3 events, and did my best to learn as many of their names, but also learn their faces, putting faces to names. Doing my best to have conversations with people and mark them down, just so we could represent them properly. But yeah, a lot of new people to meet for sure.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And I mean, we do it at FWT with only 60 people, so 80 people, and you don't have a season to get to know them. You have 5 days for 3 comps. Yeah, it's I give you guys full credit, because you told the stories with the information that you had, and those little details, they're always going to get away from you in an event or a series of events that big with that many people. So yeah, I wouldn't sweat that.
Yeah, not sweating, but just, perfectionist trying to, but it's mostly, I just want to represent everybody correctly. I want to make sure
tell
that
their stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So we told them, like, say, hey, if you got a weird name or something, like, come and talk to us, because we want to say it right. If you got a cool story, we have the athlete bios, and some of them will write some weird things in there, and you can usually catch them, or like, what's your nickname, and you'll look at it and be like, there's no way I'm reading that on the air. And a couple of like weird things. And I'm going to shout out Rachel again. She got caught by Audrey Hebert. Audrey Hebert says she runs a petting zoo in her spare time. And Rachel ended up putting that out on the broadcast. And I was like,
doing the Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, let's get back to the event here. So actually, like I said, I'm jumping around a little bit. We'll go to event number 2, Delilah Quinn. We'll talk a bit more. She made her way back onto the tour, but she was the standout for me for ski women, as you as well. Backflip in that second event, a third and a first. And if she landed her run in that last event, I think she probably would have won again. Event number 2, you were talking about that top section of T1 North there, where people had some issues. We saw Whistler Freeride Club athlete get a ski knocked off and then basically tumble and fall off the cliff.
Scary.
Said she was all right physically right away, but it's got to be in the brain when something like that happens.
Scary moment for Kayla Constantini, and she went out with so much aggression at the top, and it is kind of it's not very forgiving up there. If you have a little bit too much speed, you try to shut it down really quickly, especially, sometimes in a panic, you get a little inside, that downhill ski rattles off, and then you're above a significant exposure. So yeah, happy that Kayla was okay. She was pretty shook up by that. She did manage to regroup and put down what she called a pretty chill run the next day to give herself 7th and just kind of recalibrate your brain of like, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm good at this. Confidence is so much a part of this. So for an athlete to have a fall off a cliff and then have to compete again the next day, like that reset time is ridiculously short. So yeah, big props to Kayla for just managing to do it. And now she can let her bruises heal and reset for next year. She's super young. A lot of the athletes in this challenger field are really young. So a little bit of experience gained by some of these happenings, I think, are going to go a long way to building them into the superheroes that we see who qualify for the tour.
Yeah. Did you get a lot of phone calls or emails or texts from some of your former riders just saying, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Oh yeah. And not just me, the whole coaching team is like fully engaged in helping those athletes prep for these challenger events, because we have a ton of them in the challengers this year and across the season in the 4-stars and adult stuff. Like, while they are not technically in the club anymore, they're still our kids, so we're like significantly invested in their
You're
success.
still their coaches. You'll never not be their coach, right?
Yeah. And if we can help a little bit, then we're happy to do it.
And that actually worked out in one of your riders' favors in a big way in this final event, which we'll talk about here shortly.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll spend some time on that.
So before we get into this final event, judging, obviously, in every single competition, whether it's Freeride World Tour, where it's a 2-star, there's going to be people that are happy. There's going to be people that are upset. There's going to be people that are confused. But it seemed like there was a lot. The level of that was a bit increased during this week. So a lot of riders didn't really understand why they were scored certain ways. I will tell you straight up, I don't understand IFSA judging. And that's just a statement. I'm not putting it's just, take it for what it is. I can watch an FWT run, and within 4 or 5 points without actually doing the scoring. I can watch it and I can see and I can understand because I've seen so much of it. That's going to be about a 92, or that's probably an 87, or that's going to be in the 60s, right? I have a pretty good idea. So I watched these 3 runs, these 3 events at the Challengers, the IFSA Challengers, and I was like, that run was great. This is how I think it's going to lay out. And I was not right at all. I wasn't even close. Like I was left so confused, being like, I don't understand this. So I was trying to understand, like, where does the emphasis, or where does like the lion's share of points come from? Watching it made me a little confused why like I said, I'm just learning more about this IFSA and the qualifier and the challengers judging system, and confused with how it's so different. So I was doing my best to try and understand how it worked, but watching the runs that I would assume would have won aren't even on the podium, I was like, I don't get it. And then I think a lot of the riders had very similar questions as well. So that's just kind of my my intro and I guess setup for that. Within the IFSA and these events specifically, they used a dual panel system, which I liked because it made it quicker. Can you kind of explain what that is? Because I think you'd be able to do it much better than I could, since I just learned what it was.
Yeah, I mean, for broadcasting an event, at least for the IFSA, dual panel is critical because it keeps the action flowing. Because the judges on the Freeride World Tour are driven by the clock and the fact that we're live. So the live scoring, they've got less than a minute to do each run. And IFSA judging just doesn't function like that. It takes longer. There's a lot of math that has to be done. So dual panel means you've got 2 completely separate panels of 3 judges, and they're operating independently of each other. So a group of 3 and a group of 3, and they'll split the field by categories. So one will take snowboard women and ski men, and one will take ski women and snowboard men. So when the first ski man drops, panel A is watching them. And then that ski man finishes. Now panel A is doing their deliberation and they're locking in their scores. Well, panel B can look up, get the binos ready, and the first snowboard woman can drop, and panel B can be judging that snowboard women while panel A is doing their deliberation. When that snowboard woman comes to the finish line, panel A is ready. They've done all their deliberation. Binos are up. The next ski man drops. So you have this constant stream of action. There isn't 2 to 3 minutes in between every single rider where the judges are doing their thing, which specifically for a webcast event is just an absolute killer. It just doesn't work. It becomes so boring to watch. And for a commentator, it's the worst, because then you have like ages of dead space after every single rider that you just got to fill, when all you want to do is commentate the sport.
Yeah. It definitely was helpful. I was grateful, very grateful.
Yeah, when it's action packed, then your job is much easier. I won't say easy, but it's definitely easier. And then it also allows you to run a bigger field. We want to get as many athletes as possible into these challenger events, obviously given the constraints that we have with the qualifying process and everything. So you can have all of those athletes that have qualified get through a comp in a day, in a good window of light, and not have it take 6 hours to do it all. So yeah, that's kind of the dual panel process, and it's been used really successfully in Europe. It's been used really successfully in Tahoe. They were kind of the first group to really adopt it in North America, and then it's kind of pushed out across the whole IFSA region to allow events to be completed in a smaller space of time. So that opens up for more starts. It ensures a fairer light. If you're dropping at the beginning of the day when the light's flat, or the end of the day when the light's flat, that can be a disadvantage. So yeah, it condenses the time, and it allows for everything to get done quick, and for broadcast, it keeps the action flowing.
Yeah, I was. We were talking about, can you imagine if it was regular and we had 80 athletes to get through? Like, not really kind of what we were hoping for. But yeah, it was great because it was quick and fast, especially for the live stream. And I will say, this is the best live stream the IFSA has ever produced. I think everybody on the team, I did one, as I mentioned, in Kirkwood a couple of years ago, And the difference from that one to this week is night and day. It's like horse and buggy to rocket ship on the moon. The whole team, like a skeleton crew on a shoestring budget, putting out the highest quality that you could possibly imagine. Like the drone pilots and 5 different cameras and the switchers in the booth. Like it was absolutely phenomenal. And I get a huge credit. I was super proud and grateful to be a part of it because it was fun. And
yeah, and from my seat, it looked a lot more pro as like production wise than I've ever seen come from these IFSA live streams ever before. So that was cool to see. The last piece of the puzzle that's going to bring it up to the full on big leagues is live scoring. So you have some jeopardy in the event. You've got somebody sitting in the hot seat. You know what's going on with the standings. And for me, especially with the whitewater one, when we're watching from Europe, you're staying up real late to watch it. And then it's 3 to 5 hours before results come out after the end of the event. So we don't even know what happened until the next morning. You go to bed, you watch the comp and you're like, well, who knows? So once we can figure out that piece, then I think it's going to be just absolutely banging. And I'm looking forward to that. It has to happen.
Getting the judges plugged into the electronics, I guess, right? Because they're still doing like paper judging. They'll have their notes and their guideline sheets.
Yeah, you just need a scorekeeper that's inputting, that understands the sport. Ideally, it would be another judge because then they know what they're doing, they know what they're putting in, because it has to be accurate. That's the thing. There can be, in live scoring, there cannot be mistakes. It has to be accurate. So it's not an easy task to lock into, but it is the critical next step, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think based on the leaps and bounds they've taken just in a couple of years, I don't think that's going to be too far away. Maybe another year or so. We'll see what happens. So I'm sure they're listening. And one of the things I noticed as well. So we obviously watched sunglasses on. First time we got to watch it on the screen. Last time I did it, I was just watching the runs live on the slope. So we actually got a screen in front of us, headphones on, but sunglasses, television screen. It's bright out, and I was watching the runs, and I didn't realize until afterwards at the party. I just stood and watched it the whole time because the quality of it was so good. Like we're not watching it in high definition during the event, but then afterwards, fortunately, it was on in the bar on mute, so I didn't have to hear myself. But I was able to watch like how really, really well done the camera work was, and the drones that were going through, like just phenomenal for the IFSA to get to that level. Good job, everybody. So that's a little sidebar. So let's get into this event 3, the ozone face. We didn't talk about the ozone face. I was holding off on it. They had basically kept the public off ozone for a while, and had about 40 centimeters of good like pristine snow on it. I think 2 days before the event happened, it got sunny, and a little bit of solar radiation kind of did a little melt freeze action. Not a huge problem, but enough for them not to want to run it or have to find solutions. So what they did is the organizers and Kicking Horse opened it up to the public, and the public got on and was able to kind of chop it up a little bit, so that the riders could go through and it wasn't like blasting through a crust. And then they went and did some more inspection. It was like, hey, this is actually good to go. I know a lot of the riders wanted to do it there. All the staff wanted to do it there. I think everybody wanted to do it on Ozone. Let's bring the IFSA to that FWT venue. And to tell you what, man, I've been going there I went to every single FWT event there. I've been going there for many, many years. I have never seen this much snow in Kicking Horse ever. You get up top of the gondola and you walk off onto the snow. You get to walk up onto it. Like I was like, oh, this is great. And they have some steep, amazing terrain. It's pretty sharky there, but not this year. All those amazing chutes off of all those ridges are so filled in and so good to go. The skiing was great, and Ozone looked so caked. So that was really, really exciting to get started on. We did notice that in a couple areas where there was some of that public traffic, it was causing some problems in one specific spot, which we talked a lot about on the broadcast, especially with the snowboarders when they weren't going with the flow of the I guess the direction of traffic they're going across. It was a bit of a little herky jerky. but that's just some of my notes from the weather there. This both days the sun was fantastic, and there's just a ton of base. The first two categories were ski women and snowboard women. So let's start off with ski women. So we had event wildcard Valerie Festivan topping the score chart. Second place we had Kestrel Sullivan, and then third place Elsa McAllister, who had a really, really great event this week as well. She had 2 third places. Kestrel had 2 second places overall. And I said Val came in with an event wildcard. So 2 different zones. You can go right down through Ozone through the center, or you can go down the ridge, skiers right, and into that little Taj Mahal section where you've seen amazing runs from like Marcus Eder and Craig Murray, among others. So she ended up going through that little zone, couple little pops, great, pretty fluid. Kestrel Sullivan tried to throw a front flip and just had a little bit of a backslap and ended up coming down through the bottom, hit a big air at the bottom, launched into this transition, and then straight line and laced between 2 little trees. And then Elsa McAllister had another really great run. And that's one of the judging things where I had to go back and watch Valerie's run. That was a pretty good run. I think I think if Kestrel had landed that front flip, I think she probably would have taken the title. I was kind of I had to go back and watch, and I think that backslap definitely obviously was the issue. And then a lot of the things I've heard was, as you mentioned, line score is king, and I can't think of any one specific moment right now, but it was a few things that kind of popped into my head. It was like, are they getting scored more because of where they went versus what they did? So it's kind of one of those moments where I'm just in that learning stage about the judging process, which we talked about earlier.
And line score works in a couple different ways. There's hitting features, but there's also going into areas where you can get terrain bonuses for just going into consequential or exposed terrain. And so just by going down the ridge and dropping into that really exposed area where Val went, there was a line score bonus. And then by hitting a big air in there, then there's even more. And then, Val was able to get down and catch the bonus feature lower down. Whereas for those who started in the Ozone Bowl and went over and went like dink, 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 there was like small bits of line score along the way. But those two things are in play at the same time, like 2 things can be true. So I think like undoubtedly it was more difficult to drop in off the cornice and make those jump turns in that really steep exposed terrain than it was to just go down the ridge or go down the bowl for sure. And then get into like a few smaller features. And some of the other women had big features out the bottom, but there wasn't anything so much over there where people were really boosting on that side, where there was a big boost in the NAR available on the far skiers, right? So I think from a line score perspective, that's where that plays out.
So say someone goes down and does like 3 or 4 little smaller airs, and someone does 2 more impressive airs. The 2 would score higher than the 4. Obviously, this is hypothetical, but
for sure. And it's not as clear cut as that, because each feature will have a range. If you hit it small, it could be up to 0.4 of a point. If you hit it huge, it could be like 0.6, 0.7 of a point. And all of those fractions add up to your total line score, where everything else is based off of. So if your line score is high, all of the other categories can go up to 3 points higher than your line score. So it gives them, the judges, a higher starting point for the rest of the categories. And that's why we say line score is king, because that's the thing that dictates and determines what all the other scores are, potentials are. The simplest way is just to ski the most difficult thing that you can still make look awesome. So I think a lot of people, and that's wide open to interpretation to the athletes. And then the judges are just working, they're comparing what the skier or snowboarder did to those criteria, and then assigning points based on those things. So yeah, it's complicated. It's often argued with, but it's the system that we have. And any athlete that made it to the Challenger is familiar enough with the system to know how to work within it. So if you are skipping features or you're not building a line score, and I'll use in ski women, Chloe Hare as an example. Chloe skied that really tough section at the very top and skied it beautifully and then did nothing, where we saw other athletes able to get left, go cross court on the pyramid, go cross court on that kind of thing that we saw Raina Barker at. And Kane even managed to get a fourth one. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But there was line score available there. So when you do that, you get a decent chunk going, but then it just kind of fizzles. Well, now your line score is, it could be a point or two lower than somebody who did more things. So every other category is maxing out at a point or two lower than what the person who did more was able to do in those areas. So yeah, it is what it is, but the athletes know what it is and they know how to play within it. And hats off to Val for kind of figuring it out and skiing great.
Mm-hmm. So question for you then, just kind of to kind of go a little bit extra and just ask questions. As you mentioned, it can be complicated. And yes, the riders all know, because this is the system they're all within and they should know it. Do you think that it might be too complicated? And B and C, does it need to be overhauled? And C, does it need to be aligned with, say, what we see in Region 1 or with the FWT?
I mean, that is a deep question. I would like to see greater alignment between Region 1 and Region 2. What I wouldn't like to see is Region 2 just using Region 1 judging. I think there's holes in both systems. I work pretty deep in both sides and see a lot of both. And I think they each have their advantages and they each have their disadvantages. I think the complexity in Region 2 is one of the disadvantages, especially the heavy reliance on numbers and math, because that's just like an absolute, like, I don't even know what to call it. It's
a lot of work in the moment, right? It's
complicated for the judges. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they get it right, but it takes a lot of focus and brain power. I think in Region 1, the judging that they use on the Freeride World Tour, which is Region 1 judging, I think falls apart really fast in a category of 60 or 70 people, which we have all the time in juniors and qualifiers.
Because you have to set that base point, right? You have to set that.
Well, yeah. And while they have points, the points are just a piece of it. The other piece of it is the ranking. And they're often adjusting the points to put the ranking where it belongs. So when you have 60 people in a category, knowing, just off the top of your head, was that guy better or worse than the 32nd person who went?
Yeah, right.
It's impossible to have any kind of accuracy, in my opinion. I know, and I know for a fact that people who use that side will argue till they're blue in the face that I'm wrong. But that's my observation. So for me, the ultimate would be to take the best pieces of both systems, but that's really, really hard because both regions are so deeply ingrained in the system that they use that the changing of it, even if it was positive change, would just be difficult. Rolling out training to get an entire region's worth of judges on a new page with a new system is hard. But I think if we want to be truly international and a global sport, then that alignment is key. But I can promise you that it's not going to be easy. And the other thing is with judging, and this goes for both regions, it's constantly being tweaked. The judges have a committee of head judges from every region in Region 2, and Region 1's got the same deal going, where they are having meetings throughout the season and then really intensive meetings through the off season to improve the system, to improve the transparency of the system, to make sure that the people who are A, in the sport, and B, watching the sport understand. Because statements like you made earlier today are a real problem, right? Hey, I just sat in the commentary booth for 3 of the most high-level events in the North and South American freeride community, and I don't actually understand how the judging works. That's not cool. And so building that kind of transparency and a system that people understand is critical. And they're working so hard. The crew of judges that are in the mix, in those judging tents and pits across the entire region, North and South America, and same exact thing in Europe and down in the Antipodes. Like they're working, they're meeting, they're tweaking, they're figuring it out because they want it to be awesome. They want it to be, have integrity. They want it to be transparent. They also need it to be functional so that you can train somebody up over the course of a season or two, and then they can do it in a way where it's consistent across. If you go to Colorado or California or Los Leños, Argentina, or Whistler, you're going to get the same thing. And in a sport that's so full of variables, like it's wide open. You look at like the judges on slopestyle or moguls or something where they have a really closed set of doors and everybody's going to do the same thing, and then we're just going to have little ups and downs based on how you executed. You also have this wide open canvas of where did they even go, what did they do, how did they do it, what the mistakes were. So yeah, it's something that I regularly am glad I'm not doing because I think it's just so hard. And at the end of the day, if you have 4 categories and 80 people, you're going to have 4 people that are happy and 76 people that are not. And that's just the nature of the game. And so if you put your hand up to be a judge, you're accepting that. So I give a ton of credit to everybody who's sitting out there in the cold and on both regions and committing and committed to making it better, to improving it, to making it consistent and integral, because it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, like you said, you want to have those other 76 people obviously may be upset, but I think one of the important things is they understand why they may be upset. It's because of their riding, not because of what they think they should have got.
Mm-hmm. And that's the nature of judge sport. We tell that to the juniors all the time. We're like, listen, sometimes it's going to feel like you got screwed, and sometimes it's going to feel like you got gifted. And you as an athlete have to be able to handle that. Hopefully over the course of your freeride competitive career, it balances out and is level somewhere around equal. And if you can't handle that, then go ski racing because the clock never lies.
And then another quick question I have for you as a coach, just to kind of wrap this up, is when you're coaching these kids and you say, hey, this is the nature of the game. You're going to get a good one. You're going to get a bad one. You feel like you got robbed. You think you got a gift. Do you coach them, when they want to find out the answer as to why something happened? Do you coach them the right way to approach a judge, the right time?
We do,
say,
yeah.
How to be
absolutely.
respectful without coming across like, coming in hot?
Yeah. And it is, it's not easy, but that's a huge part of what we do, and full credit to the judging community because they make themselves available for judges' breakdowns to every athlete at the end of every competition day. So at a junior event, and I'm sure it's the same at the challengers, there'll be a huge lineup in front of a table with all 3 judges sitting there, and each rider will go up, and I think there's a pretty valuable life lesson in there. The way you approach them is going to be a direct mirror to the way you are responded to. If you go in hot, they're going to be a bit less accommodating. If you go in with respect and say, hey, I really want to understand, and they're great. They'll break it down exactly. Here's what we saw. Here's where, why your control score is a little bit lower. Here's what your line score was when you hit this feature. You went off the side at a slower pace, all of those things. They can get into the details of it because they keep their notes and they have their scorecards there, so they can really look at it and tell an athlete exactly where that score came from and what went into the building of it. So yeah, but going in with respect is everything, because, and you said it so perfectly, you don't have to like it at the end of the day, but you do need to be able to understand it. Because there needs to be some learning to take away from it for every athlete. And I'd say maybe most importantly at the junior level. And so we go in with them, the coaches, and we'll sit with them and we'll probe them and prod them to ask the right questions. And sometimes we'll ask questions ourselves, but all in the direction of understanding, because they're never going to change a score. When you go for your judges' breakdowns and feedback, it's not going to change. If you go in with a video camera and say, look, that was a stage 2 backslap, not a stage 3, you guys blew it. Like, let's also just recognize that they're watching through binoculars and they have about a minute and a half to get the scores in, and then
Mm-hmm.
get on with the event, with to get 80 people through the day. So yeah, they're not, nothing's going to change there, but the openness to be accountable to the work, to me, is a huge credit to the judging community, because it's important. And so for us as coaches, we're spending a ton of time with the kids, making sure that when they go into those interactions, they are respectful, they're listening, they can have questions, but it's better if they're relevant, pertinent questions, and not just like, why, like, ask the questions so that you can pull something out of it that you can then take back to the lab and improve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, for instance, Jesse Montafon, who's a longtime judge out of Golden there, he was just ready to go. Like, at the end, it's almost like he was setting up his station in order to do the next stage of his job, which was to have conversations. I was like, ready to give some answers and talk some people off the ledge. He goes, yep, pretty much. And it's like,
Yeah,
this is
that's
what we
what it
do.
is.
It's like, yeah, it's like our shift begins. We get set up, we do the comp, we come down, and then we do the follow-ups, and then we can party. So
yeah, and that's the accountability. That's the
Yeah.
accountability, and I think that's just so important. And I think the judges do a really great job of that.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, well, that was awesome. Thanks for that. I think that was really, really helpful for me. But I think a good and important discussion moving forward, from obviously someone who knows, like you said, both sides inside and out, from not only a coach, but as someone who comments on it from both sides. So good insight, Derek Foose. So carrying on with this first event, the third event, a couple more ski women points that I'd like to point out. Gold star for Jenna Myers for dropping in on Snowblades, which was absolutely fantastic. She actually had a pretty good run too. I think Curtis Gibson, who was on the live MC, was wondering if she'd get accepted into a new category for the Freeride World Tour, the Snowblade division.
Yeah, maybe, or they just run it like they do with the Chernies, where you're just in the same division. If you want to be on Snowblades, it's your choice.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up. So the Chernies, Orion Cherny and his sister. Oh, I'm sorry.
There's four of them.
There's four of them, and they're Telemark skiers.
Yeah.
So Orion Cherny, he was really making himself known. He was sitting in third overall heading into the final event, on tele skis, and he was doing some things that a lot of people can't do on regular skis. And he didn't even realize. You didn't realize he was on tellies until there was a one point near the bottom of one of the laps where he went down to a knee for a turn. I went, oh, geez, I forgot that he's a Telemark skier.
So their dad, Nick Cherny, is their coach. They ride out of Aspen, and the whole family Telemarks, and every single one of them is unbelievable. Orion's been doing the Challengers for a few years now, and consistently putting down runs that have him fully in the mix with the highest level of riding. His younger brother Canyon won the overall North American title in U19 boys a couple of years ago with a winning run at Breckenridge in a field of guys on alpine gear. His sister has represented the U.S. at Junior Worlds, all on tellies, and then there's an even smaller one, Phoenix, who I haven't gotten to meet yet, but I'm sure we're going to see him at Junior Champs this year. They're unbelievable, and there is no separate category. They choose to do that, and they're hanging, like more than hanging. They're excelling in the field. So yeah, it's kind of wild. It's kind of sick. It's also like way harder. So their heels aren't attached. But yeah, there's no rule against it. And I do kind of like the idea of one of them making the Freeride World Tour and doing a tour season on tellies.
If they're anything like their brother, Orion, like I said, he just missed out on making it through. A little bit of an issue on his final air, but if he had landed that, I think he would have been moving on. I think he just.
I think so too. Yeah, that backflip was sick.
What a story it would be to have a telly skier, and that's something that I'm sure that the FWT would absolutely lean into. Maybe, unless they're like, who knows? I don't know what they think.
I think they'd be down. I think
if they're wise with it, they would fully
tap
into the that huge Tele community of probably like 2,000 people in the world. I'm sure there's more. I'm gonna get send us a backslap, some Tele hate, or some hate from the Tele community through the backslap.
Yeah, for us.
Yeah. So moving on, I like that we mentioned Kessel's run. Delilah Quinn, who ended up taking the overall, threw in a lot of freestyle. She started off with a 360 off the Cornice and then threw another one farther down and ended up crashing. But it ended up being her throwaway one. She still managed to get through. But Delilah, former FWT rider, definitely proved that she belongs there. And the runs that she was doing in the challengers would have been putting pressure on the women in the FWT this year as well.
100%. If nothing else, Delilah showed the entire freeride world that she's tour ready. She was on the tour. She was really young when she was on the tour, and she didn't make the cut. She has been working, studying, improving, and her runs in the challenger were, she is ready. She's ready to be a contender at the World Tour for sure. She was the standout in my eyes, the standout of the field, pushing super hard, really aggressive approach, with a ton of freestyle, recognizing where the sport is going and building those skills to a point where you can put them in competition runs, even in tricky snow. Spectacular. I'm already super excited to see her come back to the tour after this time off and be right in the mix, because that was just awesome.
Yeah. So, and she already knows she knows what she's supposed to do. One of the things that I really stood out to me over these three events was the former Freeride World Tour riders. The people who have either been on the tour and then got relegated, missed a cut, definitely stood out. Not necessarily in the lines they took a little bit, but just watching them, they were doing things the other riders weren't doing. And they were like, there's a little mogul. I'm going to pop off the mogul and go for a little grab. Like a nothing move in a nothing area, but they were making sure they did all these little extras. That's what I guess what it is. They were doing a little extra than the rest of the riders because they know. So it's just those little extras that they put into their run that really, really kind of separated them or showed me that, they've done this before. They know how to get to that next step again. And they're utilizing that knowledge that they have from being there in order to move forward.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think all the FWT alumni riders just look a little different. They have a knowledge of the sport and they understand IFSA judging, and then they're trying to bring that kind of razzle dazzle that the FWT really values. And there's quite a few of them that made it through the cut that had been before, and others that were pretty close. So overall, I agree totally.
Yeah. And then I want to give one more shout out to Anna Essamont. It was a wild card as well, with the attempted backflip over the gap. It's not just a regular backflip, but she wanted to gap, like hit the spine. There's a bit of a gap. It just came up a little short, clipped her tips, but that would have been the move of the whole week if she landed that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it wasn't far off. It was really cool. That was super exciting. Watching her set up for that, I was like, I think she's going to flip. And I heard you guys saying, she's got that gymnastics background. So kind of the idea that like, if you can find the right place to do it, it'll probably work. And as you said, just a little bit short. And those kinds of things, you can dial in on the speed and the pop, but if you've got the rotation and you've got the just like screw loose gene to give it a shot in the middle of a competition run, I think that'll take her a long way. That was really fun. Hopefully she's fine. Cause it looked like a pretty heavy slam and maybe bounced through a tree on the way out or past one. It was hard to tell from the broadcast, but that was very cool. And I thought the ski women were pushing hard, but to me, Delilah was the class of the field there, and I'm stoked to see her go back to the tour.
Yeah. So she's heading back to the tour. We're going to do kind of the full rundown of who made it through just at the end. Moving on into this second kicking horse stop, the Ozone. This is the third overall. We have Snowboard Women. So Megan Gard with the win. Like, she had a great run. And this is someone that I've come to learn their name this week. Didn't know who she was beforehand. But she started the week off with a 4th place, and then a 9th, and then a 1st. And she had some really strong riding. Like, this run that she had was fast, flowy, and had a really big feature at the end where she was kind of working her way. Same feature that Katie Anderson had hit, but she kind of went a little bit more consequential with a full mandatory air at the end, stomped it and rode it out. So really impressive from her. Audrey Hebert with a great run as well. She just, like we said before, she just knows what to do. This is the 4th time that she's qualified. We'll talk about this later. But she's qualified for the FWT numerous times, several. And then in 3rd place, Katie Anderson with a Katie Anderson run. Just smooth and powerful. As we talked before, she's a snowboard cross racer, so she's good on her board at speed with a lot of chaos around her. And then ended up finishing off the same kind of big feature as Megan did, but Megan took it a little bit more consequential, with, I think, pushed her up over the top. And then Willow and Natalie Alport, who we were talking about the judging. You asked me any specifics. I think that would be my specific. The first event and the 3rd event specifically, I thought she would have been judged higher. I think she does so as well. And I think that was kind of a topic amongst kind of just the whispers and the rumbles within the event. And I wanted to know, did you get to watch her runs, plural? And then what were your thoughts?
I watched the full category in both those events, and I agree. I don't actually understand at all that placement. I mean, there are people above her who put their butts down, maybe line score, but her runs were pretty full. I don't understand. I don't understand the whitewater one probably even more, being so far down. And then even 5th in this one, like, I kind of thought maybe 3rd, possibly even 2nd. I think Megan Gard was the standout rider on Ozone, especially with that final move. And it took her a little bit to get into that. And, fluidity is a category that the judges are looking at. And so there would have been a bit of a fluidity hit there for Megan, but what she did once she was able to kind of squiggle her way in there was impressive. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I kind of thought I thought Nat was going to be higher in both, and I thought way higher in the first one. I kind of had her in 2nd in the first comp.
Yeah, I had her. I think I had her 1, 2, and I think I had her on the podium for sure for this event as well. Honestly. I don't know. And I think that's when you asked me earlier, do I have any specifics?
Yeah, there's the specifics.
Yeah. So, and I don't know. So, and then, obviously you had that really great, explanation a few minutes ago, kind of a quick umbrella explanation of some of the judging and some of the drawbacks and some of the rooms for improvement. I think can directly be applied to this and to Natalie's runs this week. And then also, like, for instance, Katie Anderson's 2nd run, and she had a good top section, and she was cruising around on her way out, and there was a bit of a snow chunk. There's a bit of debris under a bit of dust, and she just kind of hit the debris and just kind of got tossed over a little bit. She didn't fall down. She didn't put a butt down. She just kind of stopped, put her hands up, and kept going. And she ended up in 2nd to last place, which did not make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I mean, Katie rode great. She's so solid. She's a Freeride World Tour champion. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So, anyways, we covered it in depth there. So those are some of the 2 that I was a little confused about specifically. So congrats to the winners of that event, Megan, Audrey, and Katie Anderson. And then we go into ski men. In 1st place, we have Whistler Freeride Club alumni, one of your kids, Kane Gascoigne, who had a great week, an absolute great week. And I do want to mention that in the very first event, in Whitewater. He gave a shout out to, wanted to make sure we did a acknowledgement for Kai Smart. Just I knew him a little bit, but I didn't realize how many people's lives he's touched or how many people he influenced just with how awesome of a kid he was. He passed away recently after being caught in an avalanche in Japan, and just with the oxygen depletion, just wasn't really able to continue on. And I also learned that about, I think his organs saved 4 other people's lives, I believe. So, shout out. He wanted to make sure we gave a shout out to the Smart family and the Worcester community as well, which I thought was really classy. And he came up to me before any of the events started to say, "You need to do this for me." I was like, "Good for you, man. That's awesome." And that's the first time I met Kane too, and his brother Leaf.
Oh, they are beauties. Absolute beauties.
Yeah, solid gold beauties. So Kane in first place, Tyler Curl in second place, which we're going to get into as well, and Townsend Reed in third. So Kane, we brought this up earlier. When I said, hey, do some of the riders, like, they check in with the judges or check in with their coaches from before? I was texting, someone from the Freeride Club was texting me, and I said, hey, Kane won. Because as you alluded earlier, he went over to that Taj Mahal Cornice drop zone, managed to get across to the George Rodney Pyramid, managed to get across to another little section, and then stayed high enough to get a 4th. So we saw at least 7 or 8 riders hit that area. Everybody hit that backflip off the diving board. Every single person landed it. So what are you going to do next to stand above and stand out above the rest? A couple of them hit the next one. Couple of them didn't. A couple of them hit the next 2. A few of them didn't. Kane's the only one that managed to hit all 4 across the slope, managed to stay high enough, control his speed so he could manage to get to all of them. And apparently, I think it might have been Gavin, one of the coaches at Freeride Club, whoever I was texting with said, I think he talked to Gavin. Gavin was like, hey, make sure you go and do that, because that's what's going to get you through.
Yeah, Gav was showing me the line drawn on a photo that Kane had been texting him and discussing, like, making sure of that. And I give so much credit to Kane's ski technique for being able to put the weight on that right foot, get up high, and continue to make more features. And because, like you said, he was the only guy to get that transfer, the last piece. And that took, that just technique is another one of the 5 judging categories. And when you're the only one who can do something, then your technique scores are through the roof. And his line score was elevated there because it wasn't like a nothing feature that he hit. That transfer, that last thing that nobody else got, he went really big off. Like, he carried a lot of speed into it. So well-deserved victory for Kane. I thought he skied great. He kept his head, knowing that he was kind of in that bubble spot, for transferring onto the tour, sitting in 4th overall. So easy to get knocked out, but keeping his head solid, skiing like an absolute god, and put it down. Like, it was right thing at the right time. So excited. Another member of the Goon Squad on the Freeride World Tour.
The Goon Squad. Yeah. And his first run in Whitewater was really spectacular as well, with a 4th place. So good job to him. Tyler Curl put down a fantastic run. He didn't go around down the cornice into that zone that so many people did. He actually went right through the middle, where we were kind of discussing with the ski women. Valerie went to that zone and got a higher line score, where some of the riders that went right down through the center, not so much. Tyler went down through the center. Great runs, great turns, couple 360s, that huge backflip at the bottom to stomp and rode it out. I was super, super excited for him through there. And then Townsend Reed, who kind of another guy that I've become really aware of this year, put down a really fantastic run as well, finishing in 3rd place. So yeah, and the one thing I wanted to talk about, so that I guess overall field was really all over the place as well. A lot of really, really talented riders. And you didn't really know who's gonna. It's just whoever did the best on the day. There wasn't really a standout like in ski women, like there was with like Delilah, for instance.
Yeah, it's so stacked in ski men. There's so much talent, and everybody's pushing themselves, and then kind of by association, that pushes everybody else to perform right at the absolute top of your envelope. And so that, has a knock-on effect of some people are going to make mistakes, especially when you're doing the entire series over the course of 5 or 6 days. And you're pushing that hard, things go a little sideways. So consistency was the thing. And the guys that could do at least 2 solid performances were the ones who were able to get it done, and hats off to them, because it is not easy in a field that's that incredibly talented to rise to the top of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about a couple other things that popped out. Tam's Marvel, his run was maybe a little controversial, but I got to be careful with this. So Tam's dropped into his run along that Taj Mahal zone, and he was, I don't know, maybe a dozen riders went through that spot before, maybe a few less, but somewhere around there. So he dropped in, and a big chunk of the cornice just beside where the ridge where they drop in cracked off and started to tumble down the hill, like a pretty significant size, which you can see on the broadcast. He stopped for a moment. I stood up and kind of stepped out from under the tent so I could see what was happening and see this washing machine sized chunk of cornice rolling down the hill. I will note that it was on the very edge of the, I guess, the boundary of the judge's run. It was dropped in on the other side of the ridge that he was standing on, and rolled away. He took a second to watch it go, which I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I'm sure he got rattled by it. So you don't see something like that happen and not be like, oh, what is happening? Like you basically, your instincts go at like a million miles a second. So he sees that probably out of the corner of his eye, stops, and then has to do a full assessment of what's happening around him in case he needs to like start pointing or hold on to something. You know what I mean? You go from fight to flight real quickly. So he stopped, and his next move, he did a little jump turn, and he had a ski pop off, which could have been, it was separate, but could have been a little different. Maybe he didn't take that turn quite as well as he normally would have because of nerves or crazy adrenaline running through his body. So I, on the broadcast, initially went to say, hey, everybody, we're going to go take a break here in a moment, thinking that there's going to be a lot of attention just to make sure, hey, what just happened? Just something from the organizers, something from patrol, something from anything, but we didn't really hear anything. And before I knew it, the next rider was dropping in. So afterwards, I went and spoke with members from Kicking Horse, and then I spoke with members from the IFSA, and I said, hey, this happened. I'd like to get your official reply on this. Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I am going to talk about this, and because it has to be brought up, because it was, a pretty significant event, which could have gone a lot different. Obviously, nothing really came of it. We were able to get the rest of the event on, no problem. In hindsight, we had no harm, no foul. So I spoke to members of Kicking Horse, and I spoke to members of the IFSA and patrol and judging. And I said, hey, we got to talk about this, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Can we get a comment? So as of right now, I didn't get that comment. I did hear that the next morning, it was watched several times and discussions were being started. And that's where I've gotten to. There was a big issue that I think didn't get addressed, and we're going to wait to find out what they have to say about it. So moving on with ski men, there was one more display of feats of strength that I thought was really awesome. Hans Weiner cruised into the cornice switch and hucked a big switch 540 off the top, which I think was probably one of the coolest things we saw on the day. And then one of the only, I think, 3 riders that went to the George Rodney Pyramid and hucked a huge 720 off it, maybe a little bit over rotated, and it completely just exploded his ski, which was wild.
Yeah, and went a little too far too. Definitely kind of missed the transition on that pyramid. You got to land fairly high, and it's a very, very delicate balance between not going far enough and casing into the rocks and going too far and just like absolutely KOing yourself or KOing your ski. But I give him so much credit for that. I mean, we've seen two guys try to backflip it, one successful, one not, with Virgil Didier and Max Hitzig, obviously that like iconic moment, and really not that many people that have hit it off the top at all. So to go for a 7 off that is sick, and it almost worked. I think if he had landed a ski length or two shorter, where the transition was a little bit steeper, I think it would have worked. And watching him set up, you kind of could almost tell he wasn't just going for a 3. You know, it would be almost harder to control a 360 over that distance to make sure you didn't slightly over rotate.
You have to
So
go
yeah, just
so slow.
yeah, to just set for 7 and then like close your eyes and cross your fingers, hope for the best. It was sick. Like what a absolute respect for the send from Hans Weiner. Wild card into the series and definitely proved that if he can put it together, he's definitely got a very deep bag of freestyle tricks. And I think when the snow was a little better, like it was in Ozone, he kind of shone. You know, when it was tough skiing, like at Whitewater, he looked like he was having a much harder time. But yeah, a bit better snow and a couple juicy lips to pop off of, and he was right in his element. So yeah, that was close to being incredible.
Yeah. So kudos to you. So I definitely know Hans Weiner's name now, and it's pronounced Weiner. We did the when we did the first athletes meeting, and we got up on stage, Rachel and I, and said, "Hey, we want to make sure we pronounce everybody's name right. Please come on up." And he ended up, saying what his name was when he got his wild card bib, and then walked away. And I went, "Oh, thank God for that," because that could have been really uncomfortable for us.
Yeah, you would have said it how it looks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was good. Thank you, Hans. So moving on to Snowboard Men, Warren Doyle takes the top spot with a really great run. Lots of good features, as we mentioned before. Just looked like a Freeride World Tour rider. He's actually ridden that face before. And then there's that bottom air that he hit. 2 riders before him hit that air and landed kind of in the flat. There was a shallow transition, and then it kind of flattened out, and then there was a deeper transition. He ended up going in after the first 2 riders to hit that, ended up bouncing and crashing. He ended up coming over it and absolutely laced it perfect. He went about 6 feet behind where the other bomb holes were, a little smaller, but it's exactly what he needed to do to hit that transition perfect and ride it out. So really excellent run from Warren Doyle there. In second place, Isaac Singer had a nice big backflip at the beginning of his run there. And then another guy who did really, really well was Johnny Duty. It's another name that I learned about. And he had he was in 5th place after the first event. He ended up moving into 3rd place with a win in the second event, and then slowly creeped up just into the cut line. So he moved on. But yeah, Johnny Duty is definitely a dude to take the name down and keep in mind moving forward for Snowboard Men.
I loved Doyle's run. I thought that was it was just so well constructed. Lots of features. Didn't slow down as much as we saw some other riders do in some of the more difficult areas. And I talked to his coach, Brendan Metzler, and he said he was kind of surprised that Doyle took it. And at that point, I hadn't watched it yet because I landed from coming back from Switzerland and had missed the entire event. Like I didn't get to watch the broadcast. It just had already happened. So only got to see results. And then I watched it when I got home and had some time. And to me, I was like, oh yeah, Doyle for sure. Like it was I thought his run was awesome. Really, really well put together. He rode great. The line score was super solid. The fluidity was high, which I think was one of the defining features in Snowboard Men on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was stoked on it. And just, a little short in the other events to make it back over the cut onto the tour. But definitely showing like some really solid riding on that run. And I thought worthy of the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Without question. I thought it was one of the better runs today. And that little feature, it was interesting because we saw him hit that there. We saw another rider hit it shallow as well. And then we saw Brian Stenerson later in the day come in with a little bit of heat. He came in hot And instead of going shallow and finding that transition, he aired over the two bomb holes that had the two riders crashing, over the two shorter transitions, and then found a further transition and then stomped that and rode out too. Back to our point of like the FWT riders just have that little bit extra bit of like, I guess, knowledge or savvy based on history. You know, they've done it before. They know what to do. It's a veteran smarts.
Yeah, veteran moves for sure. I love watching Stenny ride. I think he's so good. He's so smooth, and he's got that send. Yeah, super solid run from Stenny and that move specifically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So another one of the things that I wanted to talk about, which is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, is Jordan Tripp, snowboarder. Interesting dude. He was actually a former NFL player. He's on the NFL in 4 different teams. He's currently an analyst for college football on TV. Really fascinating dude. So into freeride, unbelievably into freeride. Come into it late, but he now has the distinction, in my opinion, as far as I know, I've asked a bunch of people about this, as the first person ever to have their snowboard come off in a competition. We were like, what just happened? His snowboard's finishing the run for him.
Yeah, that was nuts. I've seen it in my career. I've seen it once before on the FWT, but the person took their board off. Estelle Rosolio got herself all kinds of tangled up in Fieberbrunn and had to take her board off and took a no score, or in IFSA speak, a DNF. But to rip the board off the feet, I have never seen that. Yeah, I mean, and it was a violent crash. And maybe, you know, I haven't met Jordan in person. Maybe he's maybe he's a real big guy. But
he's a big dude.
Yeah, that was nuts to see both bindings just explode and the board just take off, and then he's got to walk down to the bottom because the board is gone. Yeah, that was a first for me, and I've been around this for a while.
We always talk about the DNFs when a ski pops off, and it doesn't happen with snowboarders. They don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Well, we've been proven wrong. And I asked a bunch of people, they're like, I've never seen, everybody said to a man, to a woman, I've never seen anything like that before. I've never seen that before. So yeah, big, strong dude who basically just, the strength and force of what he's able to do, and strength has ripped his bindings off of his board. I just sent you the photo of him there with it in his hand. So that wraps up the event on the day. So I think it's important for us to talk about who is going to the tour. So we're going to start with, how we started it on the events here. We're going to go to ski women. So the title rankings here for ski women in Region 2 in the Americas, we have Hannah Baldwin, which we mentioned earlier. She said she was a junior freeride champion, which I now know. She's also now a Challenger Series champion. She ended up with a first and a second, and her third was an 8th place. And then Delilah Quinn with a third and a first, and then a crash trying that extra 360. So that put her into the top 2. So 4 ski men, 2 ski women, 2 snowboard men, and 1 snowboard woman gets through. Kestrel Sullivan, whose name I will definitely know moving forward, just underneath the cut line with 35 points difference.
So close. So close.
So she had a second and a second. And like I said, I originally watching it thought she had won. Watching Val's run and her run in that final event, I understand it now. But wow, so close. And then Elsa McAllister with a 9th, and then finishing off with 2 podiums in 3rd place each. So the ski women top 3 was as close as you possibly can be.
Yeah, impressive riding from all of them, and Kestrel and Elsa will be pre-qualified into the challengers for next year. And yeah, Delilah and Hannah off to the tour. Delilah kind of a veteran, and Hannah very young, new to the game. So she's going to be in for a big step up from juniors to challengers to the tour in the space of a year. Is a pretty impressive trajectory.
Yep. And then so moving on to snowboard women returning to the tour, qualifying for the 4th time Audrey Hebert, with basically her first run of the series in whitewater. She didn't have the greatest run. She wasn't happy with it. Kind of got lost a little bit. Ended up skiing down the bottom, this huge apron at the bottom, and there's a little bit of debris. And she ended up spinning off the debris just because. And she's like, I'm like, you're one of the only people to do anything there. I think her and Jeremy Lair were the only people to hit that as a feature. She's like, I thought everybody would hit it. She's like, I said, forget it. I kind of gave up on my run and I wasn't happy with it. So I just decided, let's go for it. So hucked at 3, ended up in 7th, first place in stop number 2, and then a second place in the Kicking Horse Ozone event. And that is the cut line. Just below the qualification line is Katie Anderson, who had a really good week as well. She had that first place in the first event, and then a third place yesterday on the Ozone. She's only 225 points, but no, 215 points below Audrey. So as we had mentioned a couple times before, it's time for the FWT to pick 2 from each category. They basically have 1 from each. We know Tiffany Periton is coming in from Region 1. We got Audrey Hebert, another FWT returnee coming from Region 2. And then we have Katie Anderson, which could be that third option. And I don't know the reasoning or why they pick that third rider. But if they don't pick Katie Anderson, a former FWT champion, I think there's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the same way. So the rule is that there will be 3 snowboard women that come out of both regions combined. So the top one is automatic, and then the next one is up for discussion between IFSA and FWT for who gets the nod. Yeah, if it's not Katie, there's something's broken. Like when you've got a World Tour champion who is in that spot, you take them. Especially Katie never lost her spot on the Freeride World Tour. She never didn't requalify. She got hurt, and then she had a second season of injury, and there was no injury wildcard offered. Even for a World Tour champ. So that one, it seems super obvious to me that's the third spot for sure. Because looking across at Region 2, it's like more up and coming kind of rider. You know what you get with Katie. She performed. She can win on the tour still in the field as it is, and we saw that with her first win in the whitewater comp. Like given how rough and tricky the snow was, she was still able to lace a run. So I sure hope that's the way it goes, because it seems from this seat super obvious. Let us know what you think out there too. Send us an email to the backslap at freerideguidepodcast.com, because this is going to be an interesting conversation as it rolls through. It seems obvious to us. I'd be super curious to hear if other people have different opinions, and if you do, why you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us. Yeah. Like you said, nice. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And then maybe that prophecy that I made last week on the show might come true. We got Tiffany Periton. We've got Naomi Aki. We've got Mia Jones. If Katie gets in, there's 4 world champions. And then somebody's got to write I'm going to send Marianne an email and say, please come back.
Yeah, let's go. Because
there's no way they're going to tell her no. So we can have 5 world champions competing in one category. Like, how awesome is that?
I like
especially for women's snowboarding. It's gone leaps and bounds from when I started watching the Freeride World Tour to now. It's so much better. The bar has been raised so much higher, especially the last couple of years. And I think it's important to put interest on the snowboard women's events. You know, it doesn't get as much hype or fanfare as maybe some of the others, but with that as a thing, if we're able to do 4 or even 5 world champions in an event, like, I'd say FWT's got to milk that with their messaging, because that's exciting to me.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's like high stakes. There's a lot going on, and every one of those riders has earned that title. So let's battle it out and see who's the ultimate champion.
Yeah, absolutely. They may have to get like an award within themselves, like outside of the tour. Okay, so moving on, we have ski men. Kane Gascoigne with a 4th. And then a throwaway, and then a first place. Obviously, we talked about that smart skiing a little assistance by having a good coach as well to kind of send him in the right direction. Shout out Gav Phillipson. And then in second place, we have Kai Morgan with a first and a fifth. Nathan Pruzan, who had some really great runs, a second and 2 fourths. And then a guy who has been grinding in the minor leagues on the qualifiers, on the challengers for what, close to a decade? Tyler Curl.
I love this. I love this story. Tyler Curl, he is a fixture in the free ride community. He's helped so many young riders. He's taken people under his wing. He's been part of it for, as you said, for a decade, and just been a little short each time for making that next step onto the Freeride World Tour. And watching him ski that line on Ozone, I was just like, I was out of my seat. It was so good. He was the only guy on that podium who was able to make that side work with the line score, like put enough together that was big enough that it stood up even close to what Kane and Townsend did on the other side. I love this. This story is just fantastic. And I'm so excited for Tyler Curl to be on the Freeride World Tour, to kind of, take that step and put himself into the big leagues after, like you said, grinding. Like he has been working and working and working. And he does it for the love. Like he's a great skier, but he's a fixture at the qualifiers and challengers. So for him to get that done after that amount of time, to me, is just fantastic. I love it. And when the IFSA posted the people that had qualified, there was a lot of hype around the other people, but I'm sure that the comments in support of Tyler Curl vastly outnumbered all of the other ones together. Like so many people are so fired up that Tyler's making the tour.
Yeah, overwhelmingly so. So because like you said, he's just putting in his time. He's always been there. He's been a participant. He's been a lover of the sport. It's interesting because he's actually had a documentary team following him around today for Vice. So Vice is
perfect timing.
Yeah, exactly. So they're following him around for a series from a bunch of different sports about, how the sport works, and they've chosen one person to kind of follow their path. And I was talking to them the other day, I'm like, what a story you guys got for you. They're like, you've just been gifted something. They're like, oh, absolutely. Couple folks from England. And I was like, I asked them, I said, out of all the sports that you've been a part of, how does this one rank? And he's like, this is the gnarliest for sure. Like, this is one of the craziest that I've seen. Like, it's so unique. And I was like, what a guy to choose. What a story for this documentary, which they said might come out in like December. So you have to stay tuned to this channel. We'll definitely be pumping that up for sure. But he's just so stoked. I gave him a big hug. I said, I'm so proud of you, buddy. And we had chatted about it a little bit. And he's like, you know what? I'm not the most talented, like gifted rider, but I put in the work. Like, I'm going to work and I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to make it happen just through sheer will and like energy and effort. Right. There's guys that can walk into stuff and it's just how they are. They're like cats. They can do whatever they want to do, but he's had to work at it. He's put, like I said, close to a decade into this, and it's finally paying off. What a story. Like, I'm so stoked for that guy.
And there's a fun parallel, obviously, where I'm projecting into the future here, but another guy who put in a huge chunk of time on the qualifiers and finally got his shot is Ben Richards. Ben Richards was on the qualifiers forever and came close and came close and came close. And he just dominated the Freeride World Tour. And maybe that experience gained from those years, doing those competitions, building up the knowledge base and the competition savvy is part of that. And so I'd be excited. Well, I am excited to see Tyler step into the World Tour, battle royale, because that ski men's field is insane. And see if he can bring some of that well-earned competition knowledge to that level too. Because, Ben did it, and everybody is talented. So something has to be the deciding factor. And can it just be work and experience? I can't wait to find out. I think Vice might need to extend that series and follow him on the tour next year as well, because maybe we'll get the full Cinderella story.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? So yeah, it was what a great way to round it. You couldn't script that. I told them, like, if people are gonna be like, oh, this is scripted, this is dumb, like you did this on purpose. I'm like, no, it's actually really happened. This is pretty awesome. So yeah, congrats to all of them. And then we move into Snowboard Men. Holden Samuels made absolutely no doubt about it. He's like, this is my spot. I'm getting it back right from the first event. Started off with a first place. Second stop, he had a third place. His run yesterday was his throwaway 11th, but it started off really well also.
Yeah, it felt almost inevitable when you watched him ride at Whitewater. I was like, oh yeah, he's a tour rider. He got unlucky this year, not making the cut with, I think if we had more than 2 events before the cut, we would have seen Holden be able to jump
I
the
agree.
line.
I agree. I actually talked to him about that too. I was like, you just got unlucky. I'm like, there isn't a world where you do 4 events and not do well in at least 2 of them. Right?
Yeah, he's too good.
Yeah, and he knows how to ride too much. He understands it too much. It's like when you talk about sports, that's why they do 7 games like that. There's no world in that team loses 4 games out of 7 to that team. Right. In my thoughts, there's no world in which Holden crashes or doesn't have good qualifying results in more than 2 out of 4 events.
Yeah, exactly. And it was tough luck to have only 2 on the tour. And so I'm happy to see. There's so many guys in the snowboard men's field that I want to see either on the tour or back on the tour. I feel that the snowboard men really, really showed up and showed off. Like that category across all 3 challenger events, specifically the 2 kicking horse events, looked really good. Really, really, really good. There was a lot of high level riding. And I've heard that kind of echoed around, across the freeride community. A lot of skiers being like, oh man, snowboarding was really fun to watch. Which is cool. Like, right when it crosses over and the skiers get stoked for the snowboarders and vice versa. But I thought that category looked fantastic. And there's a bunch of guys as you go down below the qualification line where you're like, yeah, they could easily hang on the tour. They could it looked great. And I think freeride snowboarding is in a good place.
Yeah, I agree. We got like Bradley Lamoureux, who had a 3rd and a 2nd, and then a 7th this last run. What would happen if he did a little bit better yesterday? You know what I mean? Johnny Duty is in 2nd place with the same as Holden, a 1st and a 3rd. They have the same amount of points, 6,335 points. So they tied for the top. The way they have it ranked here is, I believe, Holden at the top. And sorry, I just lost my page.
Yeah, they've got them equally ranked. But if you do go to the 3rd event, the throwaway, then Johnny takes it because he's got a 5th where Holden has an 11th. Right. But luckily, there's no tie at the cut line. It's the tie is above the cut, so call it 1st and 1st, whatever. They both go, so it works.
Yeah, so I don't think either of them will be upset. Although to be honest with you, like there are like a lot of these riders are hyper competitive human beings. That's why they do these sorts of things. So I bet you maybe there's probably a little bit of like little ribbing with Holden and Johnny and being like, hey. But who knows?
Yeah, and hats off to Johnny because he rode great, and there is a bit of a mental fortitude required when Holden, he won the first event, so you're going into events 2 and 3 with that confidence, riding on a wave of success. Johnny 5th in the first event with a good run, but with a significant control issue, to then be able to roll into event 2 and take the win in a way to me that looked pretty obvious. Like his run on Truth and Dare was sick, like really, really good. That's cool. That's like shows some resilience in being able to bounce back and then take the win and 3rd in the last one. Yeah, I'm psyched to see him ride on the tour.
Yeah, me too. So that wraps up the Region 2 Challenger Series. Officially it's the 2026 IFSA FWT Challenger Series by Orage. I said that a few times this weekend. And it was such a great time. I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm really glad that I did get the opportunity to. I'm grateful for everybody for being a part of it. It was a great, fun week. I learned a lot, not only about the riders, but also about the IFSA and the Region 2, kind of everything from everything. The judging on up to how the operations go, how the dual panel, how the live streams working. I met so many new riders. Like, it was a really, really enriching experience for me. And I hope a lot of people had as good a time as I did. Yeah, absolutely. So I believe there's one more Challenger event for Region 1, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Derek Foose?
Yeah, it's in France, in Le Sauce, which I love. I think that's the best name ever. The Sauce, come on. So they're bringing out the sauce for the final event, and it looks like it's going to run Saturday in Europe. So that's Friday night, late our time. So if you feel like getting up and watching that live stream, then check it out, because it's Snowboard Women is wrapped up. Everything else is wide open. So it really all comes down. I got to chat with Maxime Chablot in Verbier, and he's sitting on top of the rankings right now in ski men, but it's all very tight. So he wasn't feeling like it was done at all. He still needs to go and do it. And another guy, who really hoping to return himself to the Freeride World Tour, former champion, and proving what you said earlier today, that those former tour riders they got a little something extra when you see them go back into the challenger field. So yeah, we'll see how that all shakes out, and I'm looking forward to seeing who these Region 2 riders who just qualified are going to be crossing swords with when we get onto the tour next year in Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this big episode of the Challenger Region 2. We did basically cover the entire series in one episode. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. The Freeride Guide is available on every podcast app, and you can watch us on YouTube. Of course, the LPP YouTube channel. Give us a review. Send us a note, backslap at freerideguyepodcast.com. We still have a couple more to go this season. We're going to do an NST follow-up, which is going to be in a couple weeks. I think it's the 14th of April is when that happens. And we're going to do a full season summary before we hang up the ski boots and swap them out for golf cleats in your stage, I guess. Derek Foose, a little golfing,
a little mountain biking, a little time at the lake, a lot less travel. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully a few more powder days still to go. And as I said, I've got a weekend kicking horse coming up here for the Junior Freeride Championships of North and South America. So another big event to wrap our teeth around, and we'll be crowning champions and qualifying kids for the Freeride Junior World Championships next season. So still lots of freeride to come.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we love you, and we'll talk to you again sooner than you think.
See ya.
This has been a Redmark Media production.